Stella's first love made a comeback. After all my hard work, the Best Actor award at the film festival was handed out like a gift. Backstage at the awards, she found me. "Is there anything else you want? I'll do my best to give it to you." I looked at the woman I'd been in love with for years. I had planned to propose if I won the Best Actor award. But now I suddenly wanted to give up. Stella didn't really have to ask me about it. She runs the largest entertainment company. She's worth billions. Even prestigious film awards have capital influences. If she wanted to give the Best Actor award to someone else, how could I stop her? Right now, she was sitting on the couch in the dressing room. Her head was slightly down, and her brows were furrowed with tiredness. "I know you've been preparing for this award for a long time, but Jackson needs it to boost his career," Stella said, tapping the armrest with her finger, her voice low. "So you're a bit hard done by. Is there any other compensation I can offer?" Wow, she really knew what this award meant to me. Huh? Over a year of leaving early and coming home late from set. I didn't use a stunt double to better connect with the role. During a scene on a cliff, the wire malfunctioned, leaving me hanging in mid-air for hours, almost leading to an accident. At the brink of life, I thought of her. I wanted this award to stand at the top, to let everyone know I was worthy of standing by her side. But now, that determination had all but evaporated. Gazing out, I remembered that assistant who got fired because he missed work news after losing his mom and staying up for several days. A recent grad. He had come by Stella's villa this morning, looking desperate. "I don't really want anything for myself," I said. "But can you give that assistant another chance? He really needs the job and promised it wouldn't happen again, right?" Stella seemed taken aback. She stood up, walking toward me, her brows furrowed even more. "That's what you want?" She paused, hesitating, looking directly at me. "I've never seen you so eager to help others, Johnny. Isn't there anything else you want to say?" I glanced down instinctively, wearing a brand new luxury suit, but it seemed pointless now. On my right ring finger was a platinum band that both Stella and I had purchased, though I wore it alone. Now it was time to wake up from the dream. "Johnny, you aren't from the same world as her," I thought as I removed the ring, laying it on the table. "Stella, thanks for these last few years. From now on, let's walk separate paths." The rest area was private, just the two of us. Her expression darkened, a somber and serious look on her face. After a long while, she broke the silence coldly. "You've made up your mind? All over a silly award?" I nodded. "Yes, this is all about the award." Above, Stella let out a mocking laugh. "Fine, Johnny," she said, striding out without a glance back. "I don't need the ring. It's a few thousand, nothing I'm short of." Stella was a generous girlfriend for 7 years, showering me with luxury goods, jewelry, cars, even homes. But those rings? They were the one thing I asked her for. I had just graduated from film school, a fresh face in the industry with no resources or connections. My only asset was my good looks. The company's boss brought me to a glamorous party, pointing to the influential guests. "Johnny," he said, "if you can latch onto any of those big shots, your career path will be smooth sailing." Thrown into the crowd, an aging businessman quickly approached me. I backed away instinctively. The people were crowded, and my mind flashed with a thought. If I had to cling to someone, at least let it be a younger, better-looking one. And so, in the next moment, I did the boldest, most reckless thing I'd ever done. I spilled my drink on Stella as she passed by and grabbed her sleeve. "Can you take me away from here?" Stella later said she wasn't surprised by guys throwing themselves at her. But I must have been the dumbest, leaving her speechless. I was an ingenue with no clue about anything back then. For 7 years, Stella and I stayed together. The first 4 years, we never went public with our relationship. I threw every bit of emotion and anticipation into it, even in secrecy. One birthday, she asked me what I wanted. After a mall lunch, I dragged her into a local jeweler and picked out a simple platinum band. Carefully putting it on, Stella casually tossed the ring box into her coat pocket, glancing at me indifferently. "Johnny," she said, "this doesn't mean much, you know?" I wore that ring for 7 years, never seeing Stella wear hers. For years later, one of my TV dramas hit big. Suddenly, I had millions of followers on social media. Even the paparazzi started following me. Amidst a flurry of exposure over days, a picture leaked of me leaving Stella's villa. The public buzzed. Her family's influence was massive, and she kept a low profile. But this time, Stella didn't ask her team to bury the trending topic. Instead, she simply announced our relationship on social media. Many said I was lucky landing Stella. Others claimed she was just fooling around and would discard me when bored. I never bothered to listen to outside comments, just staring at the ring on my left hand. Back then, I had this wild fantasy. Was it the bit of fame I had that made Stella acknowledge me? What if I got a bit more successful? Became a top actor, admired by everyone? Would we get married then? Looking back now, that thought feels so naive. Maybe no matter how hard I tried, in Stella's eyes, I'm worthless. I chuckled, picked up my phone, and called my agent. Where are you? Can you pick me up now? I want to go to the airport. To where? The airport? Johnny, you haven't been drinking too much, right? The award ceremony starts in less than an hour, and you tell me you want to go somewhere? The voice on the other end shot up a few octaves. I had to hold the phone away from my ear. A few years back, after starring in a few well-received films, I had gained a foothold in the industry. When my contract ended, I didn't renew with the old company. Instead, I started my own studio. My current agent is Mike, a senior from my college club. We've known each other for years and we're like brothers. He's got a temper but genuinely has my best interests at heart. Hearing my intention to bail, he immediately started laying out the pros and cons. Did you run into an old rival? Get into a fight? Just hang in there, kiddo. I met with loads of media and film critics lately. They all think you did great this time. Not saying it's a sure thing, but there's like a 95% chance you'll get that Best Actor award. 95%? I looked up and gave a wry smile. Positive feedback from notorious film critics was unexpected. But what does it matter? I worked so hard to get here, but with just a few words, Stella could dismiss all my efforts over the past year. I won't get it, I quietly said with my eyes shut. They've already given it to Jackson. I didn't catch what was said on the other end, but it sounded like some harsh words were exchanged. Within half an hour, my buddy showed up. The place was swarming with media reporters. It's hard to imagine how he managed to get a pass and squeeze into my dressing room. He embraced me tightly, offering reassurance. It's all right, Johnny. To hell with that award. Let's get out of here. No need to stick around and take crap from anyone. He tugged at my wrist, leading me out through the back employee passage. If I didn't win, I wouldn't have to face the media frenzy and their unreasonable ridicule. I looked at my buddy, and suddenly my gloomy heart felt a bit warmer. See, there's always someone who's got your back no matter what. He ranted all the way from Stella to the organizers, from the entertainment company to the press. No one escaped his ire. By the time we exited the security perimeter and quietly got into the car, his hands were already gripping the steering wheel. The car lurched forward, and he turned to me as if remembering something. Wait, where were you headed? The airport? Didn't you book a ticket already? I took a deep breath, nodded, and softly replied, Norway. Given the previous chain of events, my bro seemed to take it in stride. At least he didn't slam the brakes right there in the middle of the road. He just gave a small exclamation, glanced at me, tapped the steering wheel, and patiently waited for my explanation. I lowered my head, fished my phone from my bag, opened my email, and pulled up the new movie offer letter, handing it to him. A new film is starting up. It's right there in Norway. It's on a tight schedule, so they contacted me directly. The script's decent. I'll have them send the contract over to you later. At the bottom of the offer letter, you could see the sender's name, Susan. Susan's name was well known in film school. A young prodigy director, she made her first short film at 17 and won international awards. She was said to be demanding and serious, with high standards and a bunch of quirks. For instance, she avoided working with big names with major awards. She preferred young, unknown actors for their versatility and challenge. Though her films were tough to make, her works were without exception commercially and critically acclaimed. Years ago, Susan had reached out to me, too. I still remember the thrill of seeing her collaboration invitation in my inbox. She was considered one of the most talented and well-known directors of our time. The thought of having her guide me in acting was thrilling. I told Stella right away, expecting at least some excitement. But she was indifferent, staring at me, almost sneering. Susan, no way you're going. Unless you want to kiss your other opportunities goodbye, Johnny. I turned Susan down. Later, I learned that the relationship between them was more complicated than I thought. When Stella was about 5 or 6, her parents divorced. Her mom, a dancer, remarried Susan's widowed father a few years later, becoming Susan's stepmother. After their marriage, she didn't have more kids, focusing instead on raising her stepdaughter. As for her biological daughter Stella, she never visited her once, almost as if she'd cut ties. The person who shared this with me shook his head and gave me a meaningful look. So now you know how much she hates Susan, right? If you plan to stay with Stella, I'd advise keeping away from those she doesn't like. That's how it was. After declining her once, I started avoiding Susan. For years, we never crossed paths. But 2 weeks before this award ceremony, my inbox surprised me with an email from Susan's studio. Simple, just a few hundred words. They're talking about a new movie they're about to start shooting. The project is still in the planning stage, so it's not been made public yet. The male lead really fits my image. If possible, they'd love to make this collaboration happen. At the bottom is Susan's private phone number and WeChat. Susan doesn't like to work with artists who've already won mainstream awards. I've heard about this rumor too. So, if we could sign this contract before the Film Festival Awards, it might be our last chance to work together. I read the email a few times, then looked up at the night outside. This felt like a crossroads. Left was Stella. Right was my career. I took a deep breath. That time, I passed up the last chance. Until today, an hour before the awards ceremony, Stella found me, said she'd take away my award. In the most confused and lost moment, I texted Susan. She replied quickly. I told you, you're the best fit for the leading role. Norway, Svalbard Archipelago. I can contact an assistant to book you a ticket. When Jackson won Best Actor, Stella was sitting in the front row. When the host announced the name, everything seemed to pause for a moment. Then polite applause started slowly. Stella looked up, watching her childhood friend crying his eyes out on stage. Thanking this person, and that one, finally mentioning her name, the camera panned to her at the right moment. Suddenly, she thought of Johnny. If he won today, how would he react? Would he cry, smile, or feel relieved? Would he mention her in his speech? She instinctively turned to look back. Second row, where Johnny's seat was supposed to be tagged with his name. Empty. He wasn't there. To be fair, Stella owed Jackson's family. 2 decades ago, after her mom left, and her dad plunged into work, neglecting everything, she was left without relatives around. Eventually fostered in Jackson's home. From primary school to middle school, few peers were around her age, except for young Jackson. Since his family saw her as their daughter, she treated Jackson like a brother, spoiling his every little want. But then, she met Johnny. Jackson went abroad to study acting. They barely kept in touch. Until this, he wanted that award, called her begging for it. Stella held her phone. She remembered Johnny worked hard for it. So she paused, trying to reason with him. Without talent, winning wouldn't gain recognition. But Jackson shook his head, his voice soft, pleading, "Please, Stella, you promised me you'd get me whatever I want. You wouldn't forget our childhood bond for a boyfriend, right?" Stella was right. The media and public weren't kind to Jackson winning that Best Actor title. The internet was awash with criticism. What did Jackson act in? It was a mess. Among nominees, Johnny's film was the only worthy one. What a trash film festival. Claims to be elite, must have been bought. Everyone said Johnny's rumored girlfriend was rich, but money didn't cheat him to success. Johnny's here today only from talent. Stella scrolled through it all. Honestly, She could stop the negative buzz with money and a few favors. But she didn't. After the harsh breakup, Johnny disappeared. They'd bickered before, but he always made the first move to reconcile. This was the longest silent treatment. Over a week. He didn't contact her once. Stella even had her assistant call him, with no success. From her pocket, she took out the ring Johnny left in the lounge. Rubbing it with her finger. Suddenly, panic and anxiety rose. When would he come back? He wouldn't just leave, right? At that moment, 2 knocks came at the door. An assistant came in with a file. He lowered his head, softly said, "It's about Johnny. We got some info." Stella looked up sharply, eyeing the assistant, barely out of college. He'd made a mistake earlier, gone through disciplinary actions. But Johnny vouched for him, pulling him back. He pulled out some photos, laying them before Stella. Blurry, obviously secretly taken. The backdrop was snowy glaciers. A tall, slim woman wrapped her arms around Johnny, shielding him from the camera. Despite the darkness, Stella instantly recognized her. Susan, the woman she'd hated for so long. The one who took away her mom. Like something exploded loudly in her ears. Her fingers trembled uncontrollably. The assistant hesitated, adding, "We bought all the photos. Paparazzi took them." In a small town in northern Norway, Stella pressed against the table, slowly standing. She chuckled coldly. "All right, line up the travel. We leave tonight." Walking out of the airport, I spotted Susan immediately. I never expected someone like her to personally greet me. Norway's spring is cold. My coat was too thin. While starting the engine, she handed me an unopened down jacket. The place we're headed is called Longyearbyen. Roughly a 10-hour drive. A small town, with a few thousand folks. So quiet. The nights seem long too. We were just talking, and then suddenly Susan turned to me. "Have you read the script?" I quickly nodded. On the plane, I read it thoroughly from start to finish. She smiled. Her voice was soft, but gentle. We chatted more about the character. I realized then, Susan wasn't quite like the rumors. People said she was quiet and reserved, a serious workaholic. I turned my head and snuck another glance at her. Since we met, her smile never disappeared. It was like something made her happy, her eyes crinkling, a hint of blush on her cheeks. She seemed so gentle. Susan told me, Longyearbyen is the closest city to the Arctic. The movie has many scenes with auroras, so that's why we chose this spot. She had checked with the weather station. This month is peak time for those phenomena, so we needed to seize the opportunity. And I barely rested, quickly diving into filming. This movie is more of an art piece. Not many actors, and many of them are foreigners. My spoken English is just all right. So over a few days, I ended up talking more and more with Susan. She never seemed to mind, answering my questions over and over patiently, teaching me the acting techniques. Everything was smooth until something unexpected happened. Someone leaked our filming schedule to the media. By evening, when we were about to wrap up, several paparazzi came in small vans, cameras flashing, shouting, "Susan, is this the movie you've been working on for years? Could the lead actor tell us more? He looks familiar." "Johnny, wasn't he just in the running for Best Actor? Johnny, can we get an interview?" I thought I heard Susan curse. She took off her coat and draped it over me, wrapped her arm around me, and led me to her Land Rover. She shot a sharp glance at the reporters. "Get lost. Mind your own business." It was the first time I heard Susan sound so cold and tired. I realized then, she could be blunt to others too. She drove aggressively. The tabloid paparazzi seemed to really want this story, but they couldn't catch up. After a couple of turns, Susan lost them. She looked in the rearview mirror, and then at me. "There's only one hotel in this town, and the reporters might be there too. I have an apartment here. It's small, but it should do for now." The apartment was on the edge of town. It was tiny, not many people nearby, but the view was beautiful. From the window you could see the ocean, an endless blue sky, I couldn't figure out why Susan chose to buy a place so far away. She noticed my curiosity. She laughed and explained, "My mom and dad found it on a trip. My mom's a dancer, and she felt she could draw inspiration from such harsh climates." I was puzzled for a bit, then realized she meant her stepmother. Susan spoke of her so respectfully. "She might not be my biological mom, but she's always been kind to me. She acted in musicals back in her youth. You two might have a lot in common." She glanced at me. "Johnny, my mom's flying in soon. Maybe you'd like to meet her?" No paparazzi followed us to the apartment, but it was really small. Only one bedroom and a single bed. As we entered, Susan pulled out sheets and a comforter. She seemed a bit embarrassed. "Johnny, you take the bed. I'll sleep on the floor. The situation's being handled already. Things should get back to normal by tomorrow." I wanted to offer up my spot, but everything had been non-stop lately. Award shows, flights all night, and then shooting, plus running from paparazzi today. I was exhausted. As I flopped back, I landed on the bed. Susan seemed surprised. She hurried over and checked my forehead with her cool hand. "You've got a fever, Johnny." That night, Susan barely slept. She rummaged through the apartment's cabinet, found some medicine, though it was traditional medicine. All night, she kept in the kitchen boiling the concoction, while checking on me now and then. I lay there watching her, and suddenly remembered when I was with Stella. There was a rough time for her. Her company was being investigated. Lots of reports filed against them, and inspectors were constant visitors for weeks. It wore her out. She barely slept. In the end, her health gave out, and she was hospitalized. I was out of the country at an event when I heard. I canceled my schedule, flew back overnight for hours. When I arrived at the hospital, Stella was in a VIP room, asleep. I knew there was little I could do, but still, what if she wanted someone familiar nearby when she awoke? Later, when Stella opened her eyes, I was there peeling an apple. She looked at me, her face blank and weary, not surprised, maybe even annoyed. Why bother coming back? She paused, then half smiled. "Johnny, don't tell me you're really in love with me." Her dismissive tone felt like she was reminding me, no matter how much love I pour into her, our ending won't change. In a haze, I seemed to confuse reality and the past. I opened my mouth, and suddenly spoke in Stella's words. "You don't really like me, do you?" As soon as I said it, I froze, realizing what just happened. I didn't speak loudly, but Susan definitely heard. She was standing at the kitchen door, holding a freshly brewed herbal medicine, staring at me with wide eyes. Her ears turned red, and her mouth opened and closed. You what?" The atmosphere was painfully awkward. I sat up straight, waving my hands frantically, to try and explain. But before I could say anything, there was a sudden, urgent knock at the door. The knocking was hard and insistent, as if something really important was going on. Susan's expression turned serious. It was the middle of the night, and we were in a secluded area. If it wasn't the press, it was something to be cautious about. The knocking grew more frantic, almost like whoever it was going to break the door down. Susan moved toward the door, pointing behind her. "Under that cabinet," she said, "there's a shotgun. If we need it, just throw it to me." She opened the door, and there stood Stella, with bloodshot eyes and dust from the road. First, Susan thought it was a journalist who got wind of something, or worse, a vagabond or a robber. As for Stella, Susan wasn't oblivious to our relationship. Still, she thought of Stella as arrogant and self-centered, never caring for anyone. When I missed the award ceremony, Stella became more covetous, as if betting our relationship wouldn't be the same again. She didn't expect Stella to come straight here on a private plane, in the dead of night, crossing half the globe. Wrinkled shirt, coat still damp from the fog. She stepped in and saw me bundled in blankets next to the soul bed. The heater was cranked up, and with my fever, I only wore a thin shirt. No one spoke, but clearly, Stella misunderstood. Stella stood frozen, looking confused, as if she didn't grasp the situation. Then she rushed forward, grabbing Susan by the collar, and pushing her down, shouting and slapping her. "Who do you think you are? I always knew you had ulterior motives. From the moment you met Johnny, your eyes never left him. Without me stopping you, would you have confessed to him?" I was shocked, knowing Susan had been sleepless from filming and taking care of me tonight. She couldn't stand up to Stella like this. Leaning back against the cabinet, Susan smirked, though she looked defeated. "You're right, I liked him all along." "Stella, are you upset because you're scared Johnny doesn't want you anymore?" That sneer seemed to set Stella off for good. Staring at Susan, tears in her eyes, Stella looked filled with raw hate, seeing Susan as her mortal enemy. She screamed, "Susan, why don't you just die? Why do you always take what's mine?" I had no doubt Stella wouldn't stop if no one intervened. So I remembered Susan's words, found the shotgun from the cabinet, and pointed the dark muzzle at Stella's shoulder. I took a deep breath and said, "Stella, leave." I can still remember the look in Stella's eyes, panicked, disbelieving. I followed her for so long. She couldn't fathom I'd ever stand against her for someone else. She lowered her gaze, ran her fingers along the barrels, and pushed it away gently. "You don't need the gun," Stella murmured with a touch of sadness. "I'm not thick-skinned enough to stick around if you tell me to leave." With a bang, the apartment door slammed shut. I rubbed my nose, turned around, and went over to Susan. I bent down to help her up. Susan's face turned nervous, remembering what she had said before. She glanced away, picked up the herbal medicine, and coughed softly. "Drink this first," she said, "then we'll figure things out." "Yeah, figure things out." Wrapped up in my blanket, I thought as I laid back, Stella's still here. Maybe I should settle things with her. Susan's herbal remedy worked wonders. I slept soundly through the night, only waking around midday. Susan was draped in a coat, slumped by my bedside. She looked exhausted, hair a mess, lips tightly pressed, lost in some dream. I smoothed her brow, careful not to wake her, put on my jacket, and opened the apartment door to head out. Rounding a corner, I found Stella leaning against a Cullinan, holding a cigarette by a pile of burnt-out stubs. She slowly looked up, hearing my footsteps. "Stella, we need to talk." Her voice was raspy. "Okay." A nearby park had a bench, and I took a seat, clutching my coat tighter. I felt better after a night's rest, but Stella seemed even rougher. There was a vendor nearby, where she bought a hot drink to offer me. When she stretched out her hand, even if I tried not to, couldn't help notice the platinum ring on her finger, the one I begged her to buy as a matching set years ago. 7 years on, it's the first time she wore it. I hesitated for a moment, sighed, and turned my head away. What's the point? I lost mine ages ago. Stella, you know as well as I do, there's no going back. She looked at me intensely, her throat working, and I couldn't tell if it was her cold, but it seemed like she choked up. Her voice had a hint of a whimper to it. She hadn't lost it. She pulled out a red velvet ring box from her coat pocket. Her fingers trembled slightly. I went back to the resting room, brought it back. "This ring is the proof of our 7-year relationship. How can it be just lost like that? I'm gonna put it on you right now." She kept repeating it in a low voice, almost in a daze. Pulling at my fingers, she said, "Once it's on, we'll go back and get married, never to be apart." People always said Stella was mature beyond her years, took over the company, calm and composed with deep schemes. But now, she seemed like a naive young girl, anxious, restless, uneasy. Her eyes were red, gripping my wrist tightly, as if that would keep me, as the Johnny I used to be, always trailing behind her. But when she looked up, all she saw was my cold, disdainful gaze. Stella finally broke down a bit. "Don't look at me like that, Johnny," she said. "I know you want to win the Best Actor award before getting married. Consider it my debt to you, okay?" Stella didn't let go of my wrist. 10 minutes ago, I sent Susan a location text. Now she drove over, hurriedly grabbed Stella, ready to take her away. Seeing Susan, Stella's face turned gloomy. She paused and scolded. Are you done yet? This is between me and Johnny. You want to fight? Huh? But before she finished, a woman in heels stepped out of Susan's car. Her voice was low but made Stella freeze. Stella, long time no see. Lily, a famous dancer. I've never met her, but I've seen her photos in papers and magazines. She must be over 50, but she still looks elegant, her poise unmatched. A true classic beauty. Started her career under a master, won countless awards, but at some point, gossip about her life overshadowed her talent. Married into wealth, swiftly divorced, never looked at her children again. For years, people attacked her over these things, calling her heartless and cold. But who ever thought about what drove her there? I looked at Stella. Her hands clenched, disbelief on her face, leaning forward slightly, lips quivering, voice quiet, but you could still hear it in the morning silence. She whispered, Mom. Lily shook her head. Better not call me Mom. I just happened to pass by today. I don't know what's going on with you youngsters, but she glanced at me briefly. Stella, since it's mutual love, you should ask Johnny if he still wants to be with you. All eyes turned to me. Perhaps because of her biological mother, Stella let go of my hand. Frowning, pleading, slowly said my name. Johnny. This time I ignored it. Instead, I walked over to Lily, this woman who's been through so much. She glanced at me, patted my shoulder, and smiled a little. All right, since you've decided, let's go home. As we headed to Susan's car, a breeze blew by. I heard a shout from behind, full of anger, unwillingness, pain. It wasn't directed at me, but at the mother who left a decade ago. I've already admitted my wrongs. Why won't you forgive me? You've abandoned me for so many years. Now someone else loves me, and you want to take him away too. Mom, 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 why do you hate me so much? Why? She cried. I didn't look back. Lily didn't either. We both knew. Some things are just beyond fixing. After we got back to the small apartment, Lily called me over, wanting to chat a little more. She brought up the little house, said when she and Susan's dad traveled to Norway, they randomly picked one. Just an offhand remark then, but he remembered it. After dinner, he took me to find the seller and completed the deal. She tilted her head at me, winked. Actually, Susan and her dad are quite alike, a gentle girl, and she's liked you for a while now. I was a bit surprised. Really? Though Stella's fights mentioned it. Susan and I hardly interacted, making it seem not quite real. Lily nodded, adding, yes, she has all your posters and magazines since your debut. But you were dating Stella then, and given their relationship, it's hard to intervene. But I think, if she knew you and Stella wouldn't last, she might have acted sooner. Lily said she was off to explore more of the town. Before leaving, she repeated what she said in front of Stella. Love requires mutual feelings, Johnny. Though Susan is nice, it's your choice. Walking back to the apartment alone, I looked up, saw Susan coming from the opposite direction. Our eyes met. She quickly walked to me. After a quick look over, she finally asked cautiously, Johnny, did my mom say anything? I chuckled. Why, afraid of what I'll find out? I meant it as a joke. But Susan stopped, seriously nodded. Yeah, I'd prefer to tell you myself. Johnny, I like you. Though close to the Arctic, today's weather seemed nice. I gently took her hand, smiling, although we've only known each other for 7 days. Even after 7 years together, does it mean things will end well? I whispered softly. So, Susan, how about we start getting to know each other from today? Extra, Stella. Stella's father passed away from late-stage cancer the same day Johnny got married. Before he died, he still hoped Lily would come back and see him one last time. Stella sat by the hospital bed, looking at her father's gaunt figure, and gently encouraged him to let go of this dream. Her father was terribly ill. His mind was slipping. Sometimes he thought it was 30 years ago, just after he'd gotten married. He stretched out his scar-covered arm, constantly calling Lily's name. Lily, want some cake? Lily, don't upset your mom. Lily, come back just this once. Then he'd briefly regain some clarity, looking at Stella sorrowfully, and say, Stella, call your mom. Tell her it's my dying wish. She'll have a change of heart. Stella remembered that morning in Norway. Her mom said coldly, don't call me mom. Some wounds cut too deep to heal. She put her phone down and shook her head. Stop dreaming. You know what today is, right? It's the day his stepchild got married. Stella leaned over, close to his ear, speaking slowly. Don't you see? She valued that daughter and son-in-law of hers so much more than us. It's better you stop dreaming about it. She's forgotten all about us on a day like this. Why would she care? Her father passed on. Stella stood outside the hospital, lighting a cigarette. Thinking back, her parents did have some good times together. When did it all change? Maybe when her dad's childhood friend, with a proper family background, returned home. Lily didn't fit in with those rich families. They looked down on her as a dancer and criticized her unfairly. Then her husband began to compare Lily with another heiress. Stella sometimes wondered how her mother held on as long as she did. Perhaps she had something that kept her going until she didn't. Once, when Lily was practicing dance at home, Stella stepped out from her bedroom, looking down from the staircase. She was just a small child but stood tall with disapproval, telling her mother, can't you stop making noise? No wonder everyone says dancers and singers and actors don't belong at the table. Can you stop embarrassing Dad and me? Stella often thinks parental views might really shape our lives. Though she was so regretful after her mom left, when she got with Johnny, she still looked down on his acting career. Everything exploded when Jackson returned. After Johnny got married, he and Susan moved south. The film he shot in Norway did great, winning praise and smashing box office records. The next year, he entered 3 major international film festivals and won his first Best Actor award. In this industry, people only respect success. He rarely heard people mention Jackson's name anymore. Even Stella didn't think about him much, since she'd lost touch. Johnny thought his life was definitely moving forward. 7 years later, Susan got pregnant. They traveled often, sometimes with Lily and Susan's father. That year, Stella traveled for work and stumbled into a conversation about Johnny. Someone mentioned, you know Susan, right? That super famous director? Heard her muse is her husband. They're probably in this city right now, booked at this very hotel. Stella's heart skipped a beat. It had been years since she'd checked in on them. Maybe fate wanted them to cross paths again. She sat for a moment, then stood up, leaving her drink behind. Ignoring the surprised looks, she marched out. But she had no idea where Johnny might be, or if that person was even telling the truth. Wandering with her phone in hand, feeling lost, she bumped into a nanny with a child near a vending machine in the hallway. The little girl was pointing at the chocolate in the display, her voice soft and sweet. I want that. I want to eat it. The nanny hesitated. You've already had sweets today, my dear. Mommy wouldn't agree, all right? The girl pleaded, turning around. Stella realized that after all these years, she hadn't forgotten him. She could recognize his child instantly. Stella bought all the chocolate from the vending machine. Dressed elegantly, she seemed imposing, and the nanny didn't say anything. The little girl was delighted. She asked, is your daddy happy today? The child, around 5, nodded enthusiastically. Of course. We saw the ocean, went to the amusement park, watched fireworks at night. Grandpa took Grandma to the art exhibit she always wanted to see. Daddy gave Mommy a beautiful pink diamond. And now I have chocolate too. Stella finally understood it was fate. But not the kind where they'd meet again. It was fate telling her time had passed. He was truly lost to her now.